afternoon, Google New York. Nice to see all of you here today. I don't think I have seen this auditorium fully packed like this in a while, but this is wonderful to see. As you all know, we are thrilled to have guests from the cast of Wicked here tonight. My name is Prem Ramaswami. I am a product manager here at Google in New York. I love this office. I started here in 2006. I also love this city because only in New York City do you get Broadway shows in the office where you don't even have to travel. But for those of you, I have to do a quick poll in the audience. Who's seen Wicked already? Raise your hand. All right, you see that? You got fans already. Who is going soon? Raise your hand. All right, so we're gonna be very careful. We're gonna try our best to not do any spoilers here. There is a wicked witch, though. I'll tell you about that later. But before we get started off, I don't want to hold off too long. We have two wonderful performances we're going to start the evening with. I wanted to intro our first performance from Alexandra Socha. She had her Broadway debut performance at the age of 17 in Spring Awakening. And at 18 had a New York Times review that's pretty fun to read, and is known for her work on stage. Her credits include shows like Head Over Heels, Brighton Beach Memoirs, and Spring Awakening. She's also performed at the Paper Mill Playhouse, which many of you may know, Williamstown, and the Yale Repertory. And on television, she is known for her role as Skye on Amazon's Red Oaks. And has also appeared in Mrs. Maisel, Evil, The Big C, and many other shows. And she also does personal advocacy work for the Alzheimer's Association and lives a zero-waste lifestyle, as I saw earlier when she refused to take a plastic water bottle, so yay Earth. And is a wonderful mom. So without further ado, Alexandra will be performing Popular from Wicked.
Whenever I see someone less fortunate than I, and let's face it, who isn't less fortunate than I, my tender heart tends to start to bleed. And when someone needs a makeover, I simply have to take over. I know exactly what they need. And even in your case, though it's the toughest case I've yet to face, don't worry, I'm determined to succeed. Follow my lead, and yes, indeed, you will be popular. You're gonna be popular. I'll teach you the proper ploys when you talk to boys, little ways to flirt and flout. Ooh, I'll show you what shoes to wear, how to fix your hair, everything that really counts to be popular. I'll help you be popular. You'll hang with the right cohorts. You'll be good at sports. Know the slang you've got to know. So let's start, 'cause you've got an awfully long way to go. Don't be offended by my frank analysis. Think of it as personality dialysis. Now that I've chosen to become a palisades and advisor, there's nobody wiser, not when it comes to popular. I know about popular, and with an assist from me to be who you'll be, instead of dreary who you were, well, are. There's nothing that can stop you from becoming popular. La, la, la. We're gonna make you popular. When I see depressing creatures with unprepossessing features, I remind them on their own behalf to think of celebrated heads of stage or specially great communicators. Did they have brains or knowledge? Don't make me laugh. They were popular, please. It's all about popular. It's not about aptitude. It's the way you're viewed, so it's very shrewd to be very, very popular like me. And though you protest your disinterest, I know clandestinely you're gonna grin and bear it, your newfound popularity. La, 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 just not quite as popular as me.
Wow. Wow, wow, that was amazing. We have one more performance, which we're lucky to have. We have Laurel Harris, who is rejoining Wicked Broadway after just completing 9 months on the road, touring with Wicked. She began her Wicked journey 13 years ago, playing Elphaba full-time about 10 years ago on tour. And she's also acted in Jagged Little Pill, Beautiful, Evita, and In Transit on Broadway. She is an avid baker, a passionate mother, a social activist, and a fierce journeywoman of the arts. So without further ado, I wanted to bring Laurel upstage to perform The Wizard and I.
Did that really just happen? Have I actually understood this weird quirk I've tried to suppress or hide is a talent that could help me meet the wizard if I make good. So I'll make good. When I meet the wizard, once I prove my worth, and then I meet the wizard, what I've waited for since birth, and with all his wizard wisdom, by my looks he won't be blinded. Do you think the wizard is dumb or like Munchkin, so small-minded? No, he'll say to me, I see who you truly are, a girl on whom I can rely, and that's how we'll begin, the wizard and I. One time with the wizard, my whole life will change. 'Cause once you're with the wizard, no one thinks you're strange. No father is not proud of you. No sister acts ashamed. And all of us has to love you when by the wizard you're acclaimed. And this gift or this curse I have inside, maybe at last you'll know why, as we work hand in hand, the wizard and I. And one day he'll say to me, Elphaba, a girl who is so superior, shouldn't a girl who's so good inside have a matching exterior? And since folks here to an absurd degree seem fixated on your verdigris, would it be alright by you if I degreenify you? And of course that's not important to me. Alright, why not? I'll reply, oh, what a pair we'll be, the wizard and I. Yes, what a pair we'll be, the wizard and I. Unlimited, my future is unlimited. And I've just had a vision almost like a prophecy. I know it sounds truly crazy, and true, the vision's hazy, but I swear someday there'll be a celebration throughout Oz. That's all to do with me. And high esteem. When people see me, they will scream. For Alphaba's his favorite team. The wizard and
As we start off this interview, I wanted to start with a softball. It's a very easy question. You play the role of Glinda, Galinda, whatever you go by right now. And you play that's an inside joke. You'll get it in a week, all right, guys? And you play the role of Elphaba. And so my question to both of you is, if your characters were represented by a social media company, which ones are they represented by?
I thought about this last night because, and I'm actually going to go, I'm going to go way back to my millennial roots and say that I think Glinda is MySpace.
Oh, wow,
I think she's constantly rotating her top 8.
Okay, all right.
And seeing like who gets the, I think you're always trying to get into her good graces because she's the most popular one at school. So that's why I think she was very obsessed with that top 8.
I like it. And what about Elphaba?
Well, this question was funny to me because I relate to Alphaba in many ways, where I don't think Alphaba would have a social media platform.
Love it.
And I was actually talking to the Glinda standby last night, and I was like, I don't know what any of these are. I am not the person to ask this question. But I think she probably wouldn't be on any, but if she were to be on one, I think it would be LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yeah.
I think. Right?
She's trying to meet the wizard. She's networking.
She's networking.
There you go.
Constantly.
What about New York City neighborhoods? Where would they live?
Oh, yeah. I would live in Bushwick.
Yeah. I think Glinda would live, she'd probably live in one of those like corporate high rises in Midtown.
Midtown East, though.
East side.
Or like Soho.
All right.
Upper Uplands, the
Upper East. She would live on the Upper East side.
There you go. All right. So look, for those of you who haven't seen Wicked yet, it's loosely based on The Wizard of Oz, and ties through that story along the way. And The Wizard of Oz is obviously from the early 1900s, became a movie, one of the most watched movies of all times. And now you have Wicked, which is the fourth longest running Broadway, which is incredible, right? Been on for over 20 years, right? And its themes are still very much there front and center, whether it's about friendship, whether it's about, strong women, whether it's about prejudice and equality and justice and propaganda and censorship and all these different themes that are just tied into Wicked. How do you kind of make this performance yours? Because there have been so many actresses and actors over the years who've played these different roles. When you go up there on stage, how do you make it yours? Where do you kind of say the character takes me forward? I'm curious about this because your performance that I got to see on Saturday was just wonderful, mind-blowing, right? And I've seen it, this is the 4th time I've watched it, I've seen it with 4 different casts. And every time I see it, I'm like, this is incredible. It's like a whole new performance. So what is it that makes it yours?
Well, you yourself, they're not looking for, the original performances by Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel were so iconic. I saw the original cast. I saw them in those roles. But they're not looking for a Kristen Chenoweth impersonator. They're looking for Glinda. And that just gets interpreted through you. And I'm a very different person than Kristen Chenoweth. Yes, there's a couple moments that I remember her doing, couple jokes that I do because I go, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like this worked. And but I also think Wicked itself is just a very good musical. It's got obviously this incredible music, but it has such a strong book, like such a strong libretto and script. Which is really nice. That's like the hardest part of a show. And my husband said something. My husband was actually in Wicked as well many, many years ago. You never did it together, did you?
No, but we went to school together. We went to University of Michigan together.
Yeah.
Go blue! Yeah! Yeah! Go blue, go green, go peekaboo.
But he
Yeah, I
said,
left that off the bio because I knew that was going to happen.
Sorry.
but he said something so good to me when I was prepping my audition, which is like, this material is really good and you can just trust it, and you're never going to be better than Wicked. Wicked is just very good. And so if you're trying to put your stamp on it or outdo it in some way, you're not going to be telling the truth, and so you can, and he's like, it's good enough that you can trust it. You don't have to put a bunch of extra stuff in it, because I think especially with Glinda, who's very comedic, it can be, you can feel like, oh, I have to make it different. I have to make the comedy different than what it was. And you really don't. The comedy's there for you on the page, and you need to just trust it. So that's all I'm doing, and it's filtered through me and the actor that I am and the person that I am. And so that's, to me, how I do it. I think if I try to put my stamp on it, then you can see me trying, and you don't want to see me trying.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off of that, like Alexandra said, they're not looking for replicas of Adina and Kristen, which is great because I will never be Adina Menzel. And, I can only be me. I can't be anyone else, and as all of us are, right? And so when you were talking about bringing your own unique qualities to the role, that's really what they're looking for, which is awesome, because a show that has been running for 20 years is allowing for their characters. Is there a dog in here? I love dogs. See, I'm an animal activist, so I'm like Elphaba. Told you, like we're the same person. Oh my gosh, I love dogs. Okay, sorry. Focus. But yes, yes, what I was saying is yes, we are within, the parameters of the show, obviously, and of these characters. However, we are encouraged to bring ourselves to the role. And so for me personally, I've always been a social activist. I was very active at University of Michigan, and we had a big human rights campaign against a particular organization, and we were able to help out migrant workers through Taco Bell, and went on this whole truth tour. And anyway, so for me personally, and Alphaba is an activist, so when I get to play this role, it's like I'm getting to dive into those roots that are very personal to me, and diving into this character who is very much fighting for marginalized communities, animals, the environment. And so it's a really cool intersection for my passions to be able to incorporate that personal part of myself into the arts, which I'm very passionate about, and to be able to bring about positive change. And as you were saying, that also the show is timeless because of these themes of prejudice and bias and lies and deceit, and what is truth and what is history and what do we hear on the news. And and this, it's always topical, but especially in this year of an election, a lot of the lines of the wizard, who is deceitful, ring very true right now. And so it is, interesting to be a part of a show that is making a commentary on the audience's interpretation, right? But it is something that is always topical in some way, whether politically or something that the country is going through, the world is going through, and then even personally, as connections between this friendship between two women, and powerful women, and the timeless story of love and friendship. And I also just wanted to add, when you were talking about the movie, fun fact, does anyone know what Elphaba comes from? The name Elphaba.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is
Trivia
really fun.
questions. Anyone know where he got the name from?
Oh, wait, yes, you know. Yes, the author of Wizard of Oz, L. Frank Baum.
LFB.
And so Gregory Maguire, Elphaba, L. Frank Baum, came up with Alphaba. So now we never forget, because people are like, Alphaba, what is this name? Anyway, when you were mentioning that, I just wanted to add that little tidbit.
But yeah, one other quick thing is just in talking about the show and its timelessness, the lucky thing about this show is that it takes place in a fake place, a fake country full of fake people and fake things. So it's not dated to any particular moment in our history. Like, yes, The Wizard of Oz is from the 30s, but it doesn't matter. It could be today. It could be 100 years ago. It could be 200 years ago. So sort of, and Elphaba as the green girl, as the other, can represent so many different things. So I think a lot of people come to it and see what they want to see in Wicked, and I think that works because you can sort of put whatever you want on Elphaba and on this story. Like, there are very specific things that are said. Some of the lyrics in the Wizard song are my favorite, which is it's all like, is one a crusader or ruthless invader? It's all in which label is able to persist. There are precious few at ease with moral ambiguity, so we act as though they don't exist. I mean, I think that's just sort of a basic human thing we've dealt with for a long time. But yeah, I think that's part of why it's been, besides the fact that it's a very good show, part of why it's been able to run for so long is because it's not about us here. And so anything that's going on in the world at the time can sort of be filtered through the message of this show, but also because it's just taking place in this fake place. I also credit it with being the first show that really put two women front and center, and it obviously filled a gap that was missing, and sometimes still fills a gap that's missing, and I think it's really exciting to watch that.
Yeah, and people like to cheer for the underdog. And so you're seeing this character of Alphaba who is othered, anyone who is othered in our society, in our world, and getting to see them rise above everything that is placed against them. And the audience loves that. And then you say, okay, can you leave this theater and remember that and apply it to real life? That's the goal, right? That's the hope.
Well, while I was on the Wicked website, I noticed that you have all of this material for younger watchers of Wicked, younger students who watch Wicked, about all of these different themes, cool. Whether it's like propaganda, censorship, so on and so forth. You have an entire teacher's guide.
That's great.
It's actually pretty fascinating. Yeah. I tried using it on my kids. They rolled their eyes really strong at me. But you also support a bunch of wonderful initiatives. Broadway Cares, Broadway Green Alliance, the Trevor Project, Equal Justice Initiative, 1 Billion Rising. Is this sort of the show, when you talked about you're in Wicked, you just let the show carry you, is this sort of what the show does as it kind of spins around for the last 20 years, that it creates these positive movements from it? Is this something you folks take part in yourselves as actors?
Well, the Broadway Green Alliance, which is the sustainability alliance of the Broadway community, was started at Wicked by the original company manager, Susan Sampliner. So that was very exciting because she was looking around the theater going, we really could be doing a better job backstage of how we handle, and this was back in 2008. This was a while ago. And so that in particular did start at Wicked, which is wonderful. Very exciting. And I've been a Broadway Green captain, and I think they do really amazing things. The other initiatives, I can't speak to how they got involved, but that one was because of a woman at Wicked.
That's wonderful.
And yeah, I think it is about, bringing the message that we're giving the audience on stage outside of the theater. So it's bridging that gap and saying, now you can be a part of this active and positive change throughout our community, throughout our country, throughout the world, by taking the messages you learned watching our show and then implementing them. So I really, really admire Wicked for doing that, because it's really giving us and the audience a chance to participate in a way globally outside of the theater. After we experience this incredible show together, then we have a further step to take to implement in real life, which is really, really special.
So I'm going to go a little off script for a second, and there's a question from Suzette Escobar in Sunnyvale that I really liked. Seeing this presentation, seeing your performance live today, the question is, you're doing this day in, day out. What are some of your self-care routines? Before a show, before a performance like this, or does it just come naturally now? You can just belt out don't rock band against you, No,
I mean, I think the Elphabas have to be a bit even more disciplined, so you can speak to that a bit. I do my best. We're also both moms, so we're also juggling that as well.
No sleep.
Yeah.
So I think you're getting a little more.
I'm getting more than you. I definitely am.
Really
but
happy for you.
And
Glinda's
daycare,
so
and we're
popular.
doing daycare.
And daycare.
And
oh my
some
gosh,
daycare.
it's so great.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, when I can sleep, I do. This morning I woke up at 6:30 and then dropped my kid off at daycare, and then I came home and slept for 1 more hour before coming here. So, any sleep I can get is worth it. And then I just try to do a bit of exercise during the day, and then, I have my warm up, my short, efficient warm up, and like drink some tea, and then just cross my fingers, basically. I wish I could be a little more routine and disciplined than that, but my life right now just doesn't really allow for it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously rest is huge, which can be challenging if your child doesn't sleep through the night. But you learn how to make do, and it's actually incredible what your bodies can do. It's very similar to an athlete. So we've both been performing these roles for a long time. And so a lot of it is muscle memory. So your vocal cords actually learn the show, and you are able to, your body knows how to do it 8 times a week, which is kind of wild. But like Alexandra said, you usually, myself included, do a short vocal warm-up because it's usually warm from the night before still in a way, and you don't want to do too much. A lot of people think you need to have a very long, extensive warm-up, and maybe some people do, but when you're about to do, a 2.5 hour show, you don't want to blow it out of the water before you've even gone on stage. So it's really about learning what is the best technique for you, how to warm up for these characters. But I will say the main thing for Elphaba is you just don't talk. Like ever. When you're not on stage.
The Alphabas are never speaking.
We're not speaking. And I even have an app on my phone that I type into and it just talks for me. So I'll get home and be, it's like, hi, Rob, how was your day? What did you do? What's for dinner? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, I guess I'll hear you in a few months again.
I was wondering whether your app was like a pitch counter, for a baseball player on the number of words you say during the day.
Yeah, that would be cool. But yeah, it really is. It really is about just saving your voice whenever possible, because not only are you singing extensively for most of the show, but your character, Elphaba, is a very passionate character, so she's using her voice a lot. We both have a lot of speaking scenes as well, but Elphaba is often not yelling. Well, sometimes she is yelling. Yeah, she's fiery.
There's a lot of yelling in this show.
She's
That's
fiery.
harder, actually, than the singing.
Exactly. So a lot of people have to train to learn. I, myself included, when I was doing the role 8 times a week, I was doing vocal training on how to speak the show properly, because you spend so much time on vocal technique for singing, but most people don't think about speaking and yelling and the cackle. That actually takes technique, because you could do damage otherwise. So it's things that you don't even think about that are actually can be more of a challenge. So it is just learning how to speak and sing healthily, and then taking care of your body as best you can, and obviously lots of water. I think I drink like 2 gallons of water a show. Yeah.
That's great. So you're both moms, new moms also. You have young kids. And your spouses are also Broadway performers.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, we didn't plan it very well.
Google's a 9 to 5, which looks a little bit different than your hours do.
And a cafeteria.
And a cafeteria.
Or a lot of cafeterias.
We're not going to give you a tour because we have like sleeping pods and massage chairs also. But don't worry about it.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, could you imagine?
But how does this life work as a parent when you're
It doesn't.
also on Broadway? Okay, got it.
No, it doesn't. I don't know.
I didn't mean to go to a dark place.
No, it's fine. No, you just do it. You just do things because you have to. And when they're young, at least you can cart them around really easily. So you were on tour with your son, and we've gone out of town. My husband's done a show out of town for 2 months, and we packed up our whole life and moved there for 2 months, and then moved back. And he's going out of town again to Maine, and we're splitting our time with the kid, and it's insane, but we love what we do so much, and I do think it's important for our child to see us do what we love. I think that that has a really positive effect to know that we're fulfilled by the work we do. So we're just gonna keep trying to figure it out. But it's bananas, and I don't recommend it.
It is tough. I will say, I think it's good for other people to see too, especially as a mom, that, it's still possible. You can still pursue your dream. You can still be on Broadway. You can still do what you love and what you've trained to do and be a mom. And I've had a lot of people tell me that, like Alexandra said, I was touring with Wicked for the past 9 months with my 2-year-old, and my husband was on the Mamma Mia tour. And so we were literally, ships passing through the night. We'd see each other for maybe 12 hours every 3 to 4 weeks. And I primarily had my son with me because Wicked sits down in cities for a long time, which is amazing. So we're usually sitting down for 3 or 4 weeks in a city, as opposed to my husband's tour, which is usually 1-weekers. And so it just didn't make sense for our son to be on a plane every Monday with him. So he was with me. And that was a big challenge because I was finding local childcare in every city. And I was in charge of my kid otherwise. The only time I didn't have help was when I was at the theater. So that was a really big challenge. And so getting to be back home now with him is so much easier, even though it's still difficult because my husband's still on tour. We're home and we're not, living out of a suitcase. And so there's things that are easier. But again, as you said, we do it because we love what we do. And we have this wild life because we're choosing to, and we didn't want to be limited by by our careers, not having children. So that I'm really proud of us for doing that, and I really give credit. Thank you.
I also do think that our industry can make bigger strides in helping out working parents. I believe that there's more they can do. I will say when we've done regional work, I feel like they've been pretty accommodating. I think the commercial side, the money making side of what we do can certainly make some bigger strides in helping people do that, so that they can balance them both.
But I want to say too, I give Wicked so much credit and gratitude because this show supports working families so much. I can't even tell you the amount of moms and dads that are working at the Gershwin. It is so refreshing. And I feel like it's one of the few shows that actually embraces parenthood and having a family. And I'm so grateful for that because I was worried after having a kid that I wasn't going to work again. And I think that's a lot of the fears of women having children in any industry, but especially in a performing arts industry. And Wicked has been so wonderful and so amazing, and I really am so incredibly grateful for them, really embracing becoming a parent. I mean, the Glinda standby, I sit next to her in the dressing room. She's breast pumping every night during the show when she's not on, and I'm just like, yes, this is what it's about. You can be a mom and you can still pursue your passion. It's amazing. So I just want to say that too, because that's really wonderful.
Well, you both are badass rock stars, so thank you.
We are.
Thank you.
We are. I'll take it.
Amazing.
And I want to say that you also bring a lot of joy to our lives when we get to see you perform, so thank you for doing that. I did want to do a speed round real quick. I warned you about this. I have some questions that you haven't seen before. We want some one-word answers, all right? One word. All right, so Broadway show you've seen in the last year that you really liked? Not Wicked.
Stereophonic.
Okay.
Didn't have time, have a kid.
Fair enough. All right. Any role, any Broadway play?
Play or musical.
Play or musical, any role.
I think I'm doing it, Glinda.
Yeah. Nicely done.
Glinda. I'm actually serious, and I don't think the creative team thinks I'm serious, and I am serious.
You should do it.
I'm going to do it.
I don't ever want to play Alphaba, so.
How long does it take to get your makeup on?
10 minutes maybe.
And Elphaba?
Only like 25.
Oh, not bad. All right. I thought it would take a lot longer.
We do not do it. We have an incredible makeup artist who does it.
her.
And they can do it in 6 minutes if there's an emergency, which has happened.
All right. Favorite Broadway song?
Of all time?
Of all time. This is a hard one.
That's really hard. Somewhere from West Side Story.
Ooh, that's a good one. All right. I broke her.
Broken. Oh gosh. I think How the Glory Goes from Floyd Collins. If I know it's yeah. Okay,
Yes,
we got one
nerds.
person who knows it. But it's a beautiful score. Oh my goodness. But there's so many good ones.
So speaking of nerds, you are at Google. And so you're in a room full of tech geeks here, essentially, right? And one could argue that maybe we're the creators and holders of the grimoire, or at least the ability to search through it and find the right spell. And so I want to give you kind of a magic wand, or in your case, whatever it is you do. And if you could tell us to kind of go after one problem and solve it, what should we be going after?
Universal health care, world peace, global warming. Let's see. What all the big issues.
I mean, I think in terms of what you work in technology, I think a lot about, you always represent the future, but I do think it comes with, great responsibility to be shaping what the future is going to look like. I worry sometimes about the role technology plays in our lives right now. I worry about the role AI is playing in our lives. I think about in terms of like climate change or sustainability. I think about like the invention of plastic, and I have no issue with the invention of plastic. It made so much sense. It was cheap. It was better. I think about disposable things. I think about housewives in the 50s who had to do everything by hand and all of a sudden could like use something disposable. And I think there's nothing wrong with it being invented. But once we learned that it wasn't good for us, I think I'm frustrated that we didn't try to change it. And I sort of feel that way about technology right now, because we're staring the things about technology that don't work so blatantly in the face. I mean, talk about an election year, talk about politics, talk about division in terms of like social media. And I don't think I personally don't think we're doing enough about it, because we're all addicted. It's not our faults. We're all addicted, and myself included. I recently bought a product called Brick that can like block, some of you have heard of it, that can like block apps on your phone. And the only way you can undo it is if you use the brick again, and I'll block it and leave the house and just not be able to use certain things all day. And so I kind of want, I would want the room to look inward at the roles that you're playing, and think about what kind of future do you really want technology to be playing, and when can it help us and when can it hurt us, and are the ways that it's hurting us making a lot of money, so we're just going to keep going for it, or can it, because there's so many amazing ways that tech has changed our lives that I wouldn't go back on, but there are things we know are harmful, and we're kind of just turning a blind eye to it, in my opinion. So that's my slightly depressing answer, I guess.
It's not depressing at all. I appreciate the honesty of your answer. You did say the word AI.
Yeah.
And every time you say the word AI, our stock goes up a little.
Yeah.
But,
I shouldn't have said it then. No, I want you all, if you all have stock shares, I'll say it 8 more times.
But
AI.
There you go. But I do have a question for you, which is the Screen Actors Guild. We recently are coming off a large strike,
Yeah.
right? Because there's this fear of artificial intelligence, of the new large language models, of their ability to potentially write the next scripts, to take away
And perform.
extra roles, exactly, so on and so forth. But we didn't see that on Broadway. Do we think live performances are immune to technology?
No.
All right, so tell me a little bit more about that. Where do you think, how do you think about technology and these revolutions as you think about your role in Broadway?
I think that we could be at a place where people are sitting on their couches, putting on their VR and watching a Broadway show from their home, which is to me cool, but not the point. The point is to be in a room with other people. It's even what's happened with movies. Like, I love watching a movie at home, but so many films are created to be seen next to other people in a dark space with the, and the more that we like isolate ourselves from the experience of taking in art, I think we'll start being able to visit famous museums through VR, which I think is wonderful in some ways, but also like you're supposed to stand in front of the real painting, not in front of it through this VR lens, So I don't think we're immune. I just think we're not there yet. And I think I saw some tweet or something that was like, I just think AI should be focusing on how to help us do more things during the day so that we can take in art as opposed to making the art for us, or so that we can make art and we can make things as opposed to making it for us. Because like, invent me AI that loads my dishwasher. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, those things, figure out a way that those things can be taken care of so that there's more time to create and take in the beautiful things about life and art, and live art is one of them. And if we're so busy and bogged down, and then we're like, well, I guess I'll just sit on my couch and put my VR in and spend this time alone. It's not meant to be spent alone. It's meant to be spent with others.
Yeah, it's about community and sharing an experience together. Because even though we're the ones on stage, you're doing it with us by being there, by being present in the audience. And
the audience is a character, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's why that's how we're able to do 8 shows a week, because every single performance is a completely different audience. So every single performance thereby is never the same. And that cannot be translated through screen. I think that's why, thank goodness, we had so many opportunities through the pandemic to continue speaking to each other, but I think that there are remnants of that are carrying over into today's world that can be harmful in terms of live performance. And so I do think, like
they tried Zoom theater a lot.
Right.
It was bad.
Exactly.
It was not interesting.
We did a performance of Jagged Little Pill that we were like, I don't even know. I'm not good with technology, obviously. They're like putting through the cyber where people could watch it from their couches, which was cool because it was the pandemic and that's the only way we could do theater. But yes, there's a fear that, that could become comfortable. But that, again, that's not the point of performance art. But I do believe musical theater has made it through so many decades of uncertainty, and it's always been okay, not just musical theater, but plays, live theater in general. But it's something to be mindful of. And just going back to the subject of, AI and screens in general, I think one of my fears is having a child and having my child grow up in today's world and what that looks like. It's very different from the world we grew up in. And so, as you said, just being mindful of the future, right? Not just what's convenient for us right now, but thinking about the next generation and the next generation and the next generation, especially with sustainability and just trying to save our planet as best we can at this point. I feel like there's like a countdown clock that I look at every morning of like, we have to do something, but we don't know how to do it. So you all got to do it. Okay. Thank you.
So we want to switch to audience Q&A now, but before we do, Alexandra, I heard you have a friend in the audience.
Hi, Jay. Jay's known me since I was 5 years old and now works at Google. So that's very cool.
So Jay, I'm not sure if you have a question for Alexandra, but if anyone gets a chance to ask a question first, it is the childhood friend. We have 2 microphones on either side here. Folks, feel free to line up if you have a question. Jay, we'll open up with you.
You already covered my primary question, but knowing Alexandra since she was 5, and I was actually good friends with her mother. My wife and her did tons of theater together up in Massachusetts, which is New Hampshire, is where Alexandra's from. I want to give Alexandra the opportunity to talk about her charity work in Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest. I've been a little off for a few years. Pandemic kind of derailed a lot of things. A lot of the lobbying went virtual, and that was difficult. But I want to get back into it. My mother passed away from Alzheimer's, and I spent a lot of time during her illness working with the Alzheimer's Association and doing advocacy work through them, and going to Washington on their advocacy days and lobbying senators and representatives. And it was so deeply fulfilling and so exciting. And it's, Unfortunately, and fortunately, it's an issue every side can agree on. Everyone's touched by it. So it, usually people were very receptive to us. It's not a particularly divisive issue. And we were able to secure lots more funding through the NIH for research. And we're seeing some of the fruits of that labor today and some of the medications that are coming out and some of the research that's coming out. And so I really want to get back on it. So thank you for the reminder, because it's very exciting work and it's very necessary work. And we talk about the future and we see the numbers of this disease going up and up and up and up and up, and the predictions of what percentage of the population will live with this disease in the coming future. And again, it's something we know we can do something about. So I'm very passionate about it, and and I think the Alzheimer's Association is the biggest, but also sort of the best organization out there doing this work. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
Hi both. Thank you so much for coming to Google today and for the wonderful performance. My name is Reut, and I'm a product manager in Google DeepMind here in New York. While I know, so Wicked has been running for 20 years, and I know the show stays the same, and it's meant to be like that, and it's amazing, but I'm also positive that there are differences. So what has changed in Wicked from 20 years ago to today?
The script has not changed. The songs have not changed. There were some changes in the workshop. Alphaba used to do a dance with the wizard.
What?
Can you imagine? So that's not...
They cut that after Joel Grey left.
Yeah.
Yeah. But mostly it's the same. But I think what you are seeing is the openness they have with the individual performers to add their own flavors. Like, different Glindas do different jokes and bits during Popular, and there is an openness to do that. So that might be what you're noticing. I mean, little things, little costume things and stuff have changed, but I don't know. I mean, I'd be amazed if you were able to tell.
Yeah, I think it really is flavored by the cast that you see, which is actually evolving nightly in some ways. We usually have a swing on or an understudy, but again, we're given the freedom and the liberty to really explore these characters. So you might see a completely different Elphaba or a completely different Madame Morrible, and it seems like the story is different. But I do believe that things ring differently as well, based on where you are in your life, based on where we are as a country, as a world. So that might be something else that is happening. Like, oh, I never thought about that before. Heard it that way.
Thank you for the question. Laurel, actually, while we were back there, you had mentioned having to stand in for an Elphaba after intermission.
Yes. So I've played the role full time, and I've also stood by for the role, which means that which is what I'm doing right now. I'm backstage. It's like I'm on call in case of emergency. And so I have had to jump into the show before. So if I go on an intermission, that's a luxury, because I have about 15 minutes to get ready. But I have gone in during Act 1 before, and that's when I was saying 6 minutes. I'm looking like this, and then I'm on stage in 6 to 7 minutes, fully green.
Did they have to stop the show
mic,
at all?
Did not stop the show.
Wow.
And
that's impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a race car, and you like pull off, and then you got your crew working on you. And okay, go.
Except with the human.
Right, with a human. Yes, but yeah, it's pretty wild.
We have a question here, Hannah.
Hi, yes, my name's Hannah. I'm a software engineer. My question was going to be, so you mentioned like the show's never the same twice, right? And maybe you kind of answered this already, but like I'm curious to be a different answer. Are there particular performances that stand out in your memory, like special or noteworthy?
Well, I, like Alexandra, got to see the original cast, and I'll never forget that. And I will never forget where I sat at the Gershwin, and that was kind of the solidifier of me wanting to really pursue this career. Never thinking I would actually be in Wicked, never thinking I would actually get to play Elphaba and be right where I saw Adina fly. So yeah, I will never forget that experience for sure. And then just my first time getting to play the role at the Gershwin was just so full circle. And there's a moment in the show where I look up at the exact seat I was sitting in 20 years ago. And I'm dedicating it to whoever is sitting there and whoever might have this dream as well.
I have the exact same experience. And actually, this year, I did the show 20 years to the day of when I saw it as a child.
Wow.
And also looked up to where I was sitting in the mezzanine and just thought, because it's so rare that you get to be in a show you loved as a kid, but to be in the exact same production, you know, because shows don't run this long.
And the same theater.
In the same theater, the same costumes, the same, you know, you're just like, that never happens to see something as a child and be like, God, I want to do that. And then 20 years later be like, and you got to do exactly that. It's like mind scrambling to think about.
I think about that too, like with our quick changes and running up the steps at a certain part. I'm like, Adina ran up these steps, and I'm running up these steps. What? And Shoshana and Eden Espinosa and all these incredible, incredible, incredible women that I've just been in awe of my whole career, and then getting to do it. It's just, it's amazing. It's a dream.
I know you're supposed to give like the correct answer here, but honest answer. Is it a job or is it still fun every night? Like when the audience is
Jobs can be fun.
Okay, fair enough. I love my job too.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fair. But I don't have people clapping for me every day when I'm done. I wish I did. It would be a lot of fun.
Everyone
Demand
should
it.
get
You
that.
could, yeah.
At the end, at 5 o'clock,
yeah.
everyone should get applause.
Thank you.
Standing ovation.
No, but it looks like you guys are having so much fun up there. Like, especially at the end of the show when you're all running out and doing the curtain call. It looks like it's just honestly fun. And
It is. It's a very fun show. It's a very hard show. I will say, as Glinda, especially in Act 1, if I'm not having fun, the role doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it forces me into making sure that I'm having a really good time, because it just all of her peppiness and bubbliness just comes off so much better if I am feeling the same way. You know, I do think Elphaba's harder in that sense because she's so serious the entire, you know, for so much of it, and she doesn't get many chances to let loose.
Dark. Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, I mean, Elphaba is like, I always equated to, well, I have never climbed Mount Everest, obviously, but if I were to, I think it would feel like that. And so I equate it to like I said earlier, an Olympian or a marathon runner. It's like you get to the end of the marathon and everyone's cheering for you. That's what it feels like. Every single show is, yes.
I honestly think of Elphaba as like musical theater's Hamlet, like just in terms of the scope of what you have to do.
True.
You know, it feels like that level of craft that you have to be working at.
So it really is like, I survived. Yay! We did it.
nice. We'll take one more audience question here.
Hi, my name's Hannah, and I lead startups marketing for Google Cloud. And actually, the answer to your last question kind of segues into what I wanted to ask. And it's basically that people with Broadway aspirations most likely think that Wicked is like the ultimate role. And so I was curious if you could shed some light on what it took to actually get here, your journey, the audition process, how competitive it is, and just, you know, how you reached this ultimate goal.
That's a great question. I mean, I think we all have, we do all have a different journey in how we got here. And, you know, Wicked, because it is such a long-running show, has had thousands and thousands and thousands of people audition for it over the years. I will say that my particular journey with this show is a little bit unique because I auditioned for the show 14 years ago and have only done one other audition since then. And for the show. So I auditioned. I was initially the Elphaba understudy and the understudy for Nessa Rose on tour. And then I auditioned a year later for the standby role, which is a principal role. And she's only in the show if she's on as Elphaba. And then since then, I haven't had to audition, which has been wonderful because it's like any company, you build your reputation, you're a hard worker, you're reliable, you're kind. And thankfully, when I took over the role full time, I did not have to audition for that. But also they come to see you perform, and that's, I guess, kind of another audition is them watching you in the show at night.
Performance review.
Right, a performance review. Not stressful at all. And then, yeah, I mean, again, Wicked has been very loyal to me and my family. I'm so grateful. And so they have continued to ask me back over the years, and I don't have to audition when I come back. But I think, you know, when I did first audition, I did all of the Elphaba material. And, you know, I was very the very first time I auditioned, I was very nervous and I didn't do well. And then thankfully I got another shot and I said, you know what? I'm never going to get this. So I'm just going to have fun. And because I did that, I actually gave an incredible audition. And the associate director, I'll never forget, she said, you've been waiting to do this for a long time, haven't you? And I just like broke down. And yeah, that was my first audition with Wicked. But it really is about, it's about connections with people. Your reputation follows you. It's about being, like I said, reliable, hard worker, consistent, someone they can really count on, because these are beasts of roles, right? And so it does take a really special person to be able to fill these shoes, and a hard worker for sure. But they really want to work with nice people, So it's very similar to your qualities here at Google.
I mean, Wicked is the closest thing we have to a corporation on Broadway, besides Disney. And so they do promote from within very often, but that sometimes they also do outside hires. And I would consider myself an outside hire because I just auditioned back in December for the first time ever. I had never auditioned for the show before. I don't know why. I definitely would have if the chance had come along, but it never had. And I got the audition. My agents went, is this something you're interested in? And I wrote back some very sort of like, oh yeah, I know it already, so I'll do it. But I was like, am I interested?
You got to play it cool.
Wicked.
Like, oh yeah.
But I've just done a lot of things over the years. I've done Broadway, I've done television, I've done off Broadway. Before this, I had 2 years where I barely worked at all. I was pregnant for one of those, but I pretty much had 2 years of just not working, and that was really difficult. And so to have something like this come along I'm so grateful for it on many levels. And because I love what I do and I want to do it. And this is getting to do it at, its highest and most visible level. That's the thing. I've done a lot of things I'm really proud of that not many people see. And this is a very cool thing that, this is something my family back home can always say, oh, my niece is in Wicked, and everyone knows what that is, as opposed to most of the other shows I've done. So that's been very exciting.
Well, so before I'm allowed to let you go, I need to know what is the best chocolate chip cookie place in New York City.
Levain,
but the cookies at Culture Espresso. Yeah. See, I see nods. Yeah. There's a couple locations. I go to the one on 38th, just off of 8th Avenue. I think they've been voted best chocolate chip cookie because I like Levain, but they have walnuts, and I'm not a big fan of walnuts in my chocolate chip cookies. So yeah, so I like the ones at Culture Espresso, and Chip City is pretty good too. They start out in Astoria as Chip, but Culture Espresso.
I will also say Bibble and Sip, which is literally across the street from the stage door of the Gershwin, 51st and 8th. They have amazing chocolate chip cookies. Have you tried them?
No, I haven't.
They're so good.
All right, well, I have some weight to gain.
Yes, you do. It's worth it.
Alexandra, Laurel, Elphaba, Glinda, thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you.